really special guest, Tess Rollins of Simply Enhance. And we're going to talk about my latest blog, which went up at the beginning of July on, oh my God, I just lost my train of thought because, we're live. On how to find 1 million hidden consumers. And really what this blog talked about is it broke down hidden consumers into three groups. And the reason I thought of Tess while even writing the blog was her experience in 2020 of her husband had a heart attack and they went completely plant-based in their diets afterwards. So today we're going to talk about all the fun that entailed, just like every other hidden consumer. What were those struggles and how did they overcome them? So with that, hi Tess, thank you for being here.
Hello, Amy. We have so much fun together, so we're hoping that that will translate here with our audience today.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
yeah,
excited to talk about this because, this is something that we're both passionate about and very excited to share with other people that, may or may not know about the hidden issues that we have. I mean, we know about this because we live this, right?
Yep, absolutely. And we need to bring this out so more people understand what the struggles are because we're going to be the voice for everybody else. So let's start with, why did you go plant-based after he had a heart attack? Tell us your story.
So, just like any other husband that calls upon his wife, unbeknownst to me, he was having a heart attack. He was upstairs and, we were getting ready just to go get ready and get some stuff from the garden center because we do love to garden and cook. So, he calls me and I'm like, okay, I'll be right there. And actually, he was having a heart attack. So, after the heart attack and he came home, we saw the cardiologist, and the cardiologist had suggested that, perhaps we should change our diet, even though they were still trying to assess what may have caused the heart attack. They're kind of sort of chalking it up to stress. He does work for a federal agency, so, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. But for us, he suggested, why don't you guys try the Mediterranean diet? So we were at the time, we went ahead and tried to get one of those food deliveries that actually has Mediterranean diet as one of their choices. And that way we wouldn't really have to think about it and then just, do that kind of service and follow the recipes type of thing. My problem is that I love to eat and cook and I like a variety of things. And the problem that I was having was that with the Mediterranean diet, things were just tasting the same because we were using the same spices. It's Mediterranean diet. So, you're using the same thing. And it just wasn't going to be sustainable for me. If I'm not happy, then obviously he's not going to be happy because that just kind of happens, right? That comes naturally. So, while we were doing the Mediterranean diet, Dan had decided that he would go ahead and do some more research. And what he was finding was that just some basic things. When you're eating animal products, you're intaking whatever the animal is also consuming. And so on top of that, so if they've got cholesterol, we naturally produce cholesterol as animals. And if our cholesterol may or may not be high, but if you're consuming animal products, then that can obviously increase your cholesterol. And the same, right? If they are, however they're getting produced or manufactured or going through the process before it comes to the grocery store and before you cook it, if there is antibiotics, if there is any kind of pesticides that they might be eating in the plants that they're eating, any of that stuff that they're consuming, we're going to end up consuming. Does some of it get cooked off? Maybe a little bit, but not everything. So, I think that's what kind of got that ball rolling, is that he was starting to actually really educate himself and doing the research. And as he was doing the research, he was getting more and more ticked off because he does work for the federal government. And, he was raised for 60 something years. He was raised on, here's your food pyramid, here's what you should eat. And even if you go to some of the websites such as American Heart Association or the American Cancer Society, they too are still promoting a lot of the products that may or may not be healthy and calling it healthy. And I think that was a problem, but part of that problem is because of who sponsors their websites. So that was another thing that we found out. And as we were doing more research, he took me to, he's like, come on, let you try it. And I'm like, try what? And he's like, he says plant-based. And I'm like, okay, I like pizza, right? You know that I like cheese with my wine. That, just the basic things that I've grew up on. So our biggest thing is that, I wanted to support him, but I wasn't really sure I wanted to go plant-based. And I think what happened was when he did take me on date night to a vegan place, which I was like, okay, I got to support him. I got to get him back on a healthy journey. And it wasn't like we were eating horribly. I mean, we thought we were eating the right things. We garden, we cook, we made sure that we were trimming off fats and that kind of stuff. When we did buy meats and poultry and things from the store, we thought we were doing the right things. We were actually weighing our stuff. So you got your 4 ounces or your 6 ounces, depending upon what we're eating. So we thought we were doing the right thing. And come to find out that, you know what, even if you're doing the right things, you could still end up with getting sick. Your cholesterol can still be high. He didn't want to be on 15 medications that he left the hospital with. So going plant-based, I will have to say that is one of the things that has cut, is that his medications have cut more than half. So he's, down to maybe 4 or 5 that he's got to take all the time. And we supplement. And so not only has he cut the medications, a lot of them are gone. The ones that they're on a smaller dosage than they were originally. And we're still working towards that. We're still working towards to see, what else we could do that he wouldn't have to take medications. We do supplement with vegan vitamins. So he does do, we did do that kind of research, or he did do all the research, I'll say, and then I copied. But for me, he watched a documentary called Forks Over Knives. He was all set and ready to go. I wasn't there yet. I watched Forks Over Knives. It happened to be, people that actually lived in this area, and they were doctors who actually grew up on dairy farms. It started to make sense intellectually, but for me, what really hit me was when somebody suggested watch the Netflix documentary, The Game Changers. Watch that because you're a sports mom. Now you have grandchildren that are playing sports, and that might resound, might hit you a little bit in a different way. I watched that, and it totally made sense to me. I got to see the science behind it, and then I'm like, okay, let's go. Now, the one thing that I won't necessarily recommend that you do that we did is we went cold turkey. So we went full force. We went grocery shopping, went to the grocery store, spent a few hours there, and overnight changed. Just cold turkey.
Let's talk about that. What was your first experience grocery shopping? Because I remember mine. Mine was a whole playground. So what was yours like?
So like anybody else, when you go grocery shopping, especially if you go to a store or a farmer's market and you know where everything is, you just go do your thing and you've got your basket and you're in and out, depending upon if you're just picking up a couple of things or doing your full grocery shopping. But typically I'm an in and out kind of person. I don't like to browse. I know what I want. So even with full groceries, maybe I'm like out in 35, 40 minutes to get everything that I need. Like if I had to do full stock. Other than that, it's going to be like a 10 or 15 minute in and out. Yeah. First time we went for the whole, we're going vegan, we're going plant-based. It was like literally 2.5, almost 3 hours. Yep. To try to figure out, to really figure out and read labels and to watch the sodium levels and to look at how things are packed. Are they in water? Are they in oil? Are they in sugar? Are they in syrup? Yeah. So when you really start paying attention, the first thing I'm going to say is don't get discouraged. If you're making those changes, regardless if you're going plant-based or you're just changing how you eat, don't get discouraged if you've got to spend more than double the time it normally would take to go shopping. I think that's something that prepare yourself and try to still make it fun.
Yeah. Fun. So did you run into any issues with the labels? Like, were there things that what you thought wasn't really happening?
Yes. So the, the things with the labels was really seeing all of that stuff, and we wanted like the shorter list of ingredients, right? The shorter the list, the better. Um, and I mean, we have seen some changes over the years as far as the labeling goes. Not necessarily a good thing. Some of it is marketing changes.
Mhm.
But for us, I think that the most difficulty was at the very beginning was trying to find the stuff that didn't have as much sodium, because the sodium, so the sodium content was very high. And then when you look at the labels and you look at the ingredients, the more ingredients there are, the more preservatives there are. So the more processed it is. And I think that that's probably was probably our biggest learning curve. So we started learning shorter, if if at all possible, whatever we could, make fresh from fresh produce. And even with that, we still had to kind of watch, we have a list that says we can't always remember what's clean and dirty when it comes to any of the produce that you're coming. But if we could, as much as possible, we try to support the local farmers that are here, that are at the farmers markets. I think that for us, that's been the best thing. But then again, you're going to start cooking seasonal then. So you just,
Yeah.
it's those are probably some of the obstacles that we came across.
So you mentioned a little bit about it, but let's dig into what were the marketing obstacles around the labeling that you ran into?
So, just so happens, of course, that I'm in brand strategy and in marketing, so I understand the changes that happen when there's a quote unquote new trend.
Yeah.
So a few years back, it was everything was organic. Things under the ground were organic, and it's kind of like, okay, um, and things were fat free. Like beans are fat free. We're like, well, no kidding, beans are fat free, right? So, um, but those are the things that are part of marketing, and because that is the industry where I'm here to help businesses market. However, I want to be a little bit more truthful and not necessarily use the in thing just to get somebody's attention, right?
Yeah.
If something is naturally fat free, I don't need to put it in on a label. Does it help the consumer? It might help my college kid that's just learning how to cook. Um,
I don't think they care about fat free at that level though.
right, exactly. But and you know what? It may be, and it may, and I don't want to sound flippant, but it may help somebody that is, maybe going on a new health journey and having to cook for the first time and not knowing what's fat free and what's not fat free. But
Yeah.
putting fat free on a can or in front of produce, which they don't do, I don't see that much anymore. But I literally, you're still seeing things like refried beans are fat free. Yeah,
But
like
but let's just
go to your
yeah.
grocery store, go look for a can of refried beans, and you'll find at least, I guarantee you will find at least one brand, possibly two, that will say fat free on a can of beans.
But
um
and but that really does
but
touch on this bigger topic though of people like in our consumer groups where we're hidden and people don't really, we have a much better educated understanding of our food and most people don't. And well, there's a good section that doesn't. I mean, they have to label it fat free for a reason. To us, we're like, well, it makes sense because, we understand at a different educational level when it comes to our food. So, well, I'm trying to find a nice way to say this because I get this is a huge issue for me. I mean, like
yes.
gluten free was when I originally realized I had a corn allergy, gluten free was the term. Everybody was gluten free. And one of the major companies came out with a gluten free pancake mix. And my friend with
Hmm.
celiacs ended up in the emergency room with complications because there was still too much gluten in the gluten free. So is the problem with marketing that they're targeting the wrong group? Are they targeting these group of people who they're trying to educate versus trying to be honest and work towards the people who are already educated and they're just not getting the right information.
In my opinion, and working in the brand strategy business, in my opinion, a lot of people are not educated in whether it's label and packaging. Sometimes it's just a concept that's brought to them and said, this is what we want on it, because this is what we believe our product is. However, in some cases, I think it's just lack of education. I mean, I'm being quite frank. I think it's lack of education, and that this particular product that they want to sell, especially if it's a quote unquote newer product to their product line, I think that if they can list things that they think it is, but I don't know necessarily, I'm not saying that they don't have nutritionists on staff that know better, but I think part of it really is a marketing strategy, which is, like I said, organic, gluten-free. People that are on the keto diet, they want to see something that's keto. And I've had some people that have had reactions again, because it's not fully keto. And that's not necessarily all to blame on the person creating the packaging or the manufacturer creating the packaging. Right. Sometimes it's just part of what they get in the specs.
Yep. Well, and from what my experience from dealing with manufacturers too is they don't go to the extent of vetting their products, so they don't fully understand what the ingredients are made of that they're making their product of, because typically they're not making the actual ingredients. Is it up to the marketing team though to educate the consumer that doesn't have knowledge?
No, I think I mean,
I think you're.
I'll say yes and no. So like, no, when it comes to what they're branding, like I think it's they should be a little bit more responsible as far as educating themselves into what that product is before the package, before the labeling is on the packaging. That part, I believe so. But as far as when it comes to the actual product that's in the packaging, I think that the product in the packaging that needs to come from the company and not necessarily the brand strategist, the person that's helping them get to, or even the designer of the packaging. I think what happens is, you've got their mindsets are totally different. So yes, when it comes to the brand strategy, the person that's doing the brand strategist should be speaking to the actual product owner or so that they can talk about and say, okay, what exactly is in here, so that when we are creating our campaigns, and as you move down your process, your production line to the packaging, we can have those open conversations and say, you know what, that's not appropriate. We should not put that on the label.
Yep. Yeah.
So yes, there needs to be some conversations along the way. And that can slow down a process. And I think that that's part of the, it is, they kind of just skip over and say, well, it is what it is. We're like, no, it's hard. You've got to educate. Yes, we understand there are deadlines, there's timelines, there's rollouts, there's launches. We get that. But the conversation along the way, if we don't have those conversations early in the actual production process, that's where we end up with consumers getting sick, things getting recalled. I think that if they started at the beginning, you'd have less companies losing money on recalls. And less people getting sick, where people would then get litigious and then sue companies. I think that that's where it's got to start early.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really comes across like between all the branches that go into a product, it's like they're all independent silos and no one's really talking to each other to get to those.
Correct.
You're not sharing their information. Like personally, I think the people who are purchasing your ingredients should be vetting that product, but making that a file that's open to the marketing team, because then the marketing team will know, is this truly gluten-free? Can we really make that claim?
Right. Yes, and absolutely. And we've had this conversation prior to today about how I feel about now with the trends with plant-based. So now there are processed foods that are coming on the market that are plant-based. And yes, they are made from plant-based ingredients, but then because of the shelf life and because of the production and processing, you still have processing in there, and there's still something there that. So for me, it's difficult that I'm seeing now a bunch of quote unquote plant based. Again, I go to the vegetable aisle and it says plant based packed in water. Okay, that's
It's a plant.
it's a can of beans, it's a can of corn, it's a can of carrots. But they're starting. But I'm telling you that those even canned goods are now starting to show plant based on the labels, and it's
It's
bothersome.
it's like plant based is now the new it word. Like it's been
Correct.
around for, it's always been an undercurrent of what people recommend and doctors recommend, but it seems to be gaining mainstream marketing speed now, where now it's going to be everything is plant based, even if it's not. But there was some plant used to make it, so now I mean
Correct.
technically you could
That's
say
the
an
concern.
Oreo is plant based because it's all, there's no natural ingredient in it, but all those ingredients start as a plant. So
Correct.
your Oreo cookies could be plant based.
They
And
could
that's
be.
my problem with marketing.
Yes. Yes. The thing is, at least you have a friend in marketing who at least gets it.
Yeah,
Yes. If people could listen in on some of our conversations about the process and what we're looking for, because even let's say in your case, you have, different medical issues and with food, and it looks good when you're until you end up with a migraine or worse in the emergency room because of something. So perhaps originally it would have been fine had you been there when they made it, but by the time you bought it in the store, and a lot of times it's packaging
Yep.
and process and what it's held in, what it's contained in to get to you, that's what's making you sick. There's no conversation between, there really isn't. There's not a conversation between how they're preparing it, which would have been fine if you would have gotten it from right there, and to the part where it's box packaged and, you know, and that part is an educational part. That is lack of education in all across the board in production.
Yep. Which is, it's fascinating that you bring that up, because I met someone in the packaging world and that was our conversation. Like we had a really quick conversation, but she was impressed I had a better understanding than most people in her industry.
I would love to have a conversation. I would love for the three of us to have a conversation, because for me, it's about how do I come up with a strategy? It's difficult for me because, and one of the reasons why right now I'm kind of struggling with trying to help market for those in the food industry specifically, because if I can't get behind it, it's hard for me to creatively come up with a campaign, because I want to be truthful. I want them to know. I want people to know what's in it, because just because of my personal experience. So it's become a core value of mine, and it's something that is evolved and continues to evolve. But yeah, having those conversations in between instead of just handing it off to the next part of production, I
Yeah.
think is where things should move. If you really want to provide a healthier, uh, whether it's plant-based, gluten, whatever kind of allergy, whatever kind of food sensitivities you have, if you really want to provide that, then there needs to be conversations between, gathering the food, you know, cleaning it, cooking it, preparing it, then containing it before somebody can take it to market and then try to get it out to, launch it to the public in a proper campaign.
There you go. All right, so we're going to wrap up here. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us? Is there something you really want people to understand to drive home?
I think that the big thing is, do your own research so that it can benefit you, and that it aligns with what you want to do. That's the biggest thing. I kind of just went along for the ride with my husband, but I will tell you that because we do like to cook and we do like to garden, and we understand that people don't like to do that, there are some really good products out there that have done the research and that would be, perfectly fine for you. But yeah, do that research for yourself. I got lucky. My husband did all the research and then just said, "Here you go, do it." and I could implement it. But also, if you have a household where you've got different people eating different things or food sensitive, try to find that commonality where, so that it's not so hard on you to, whether if
Yeah.
you're transitioning out on something or if you're trying to implement more things like fruits and vegetables or whatever into your diet.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Oh, that is such a huge one. That's a huge, excellent, excellent. Thank you, Tess. I continue to look forward to all the fun images you post of the food you're trying and having fun experimenting with.
You know me, I'm always here, whatever you need, and
She is.
any
She is
kind
like
of fun
confident.
discussions.
Yeah. You
Now,
are.
if you can stay cool for the rest of the summer, I don't know about that. In California with your hundreds, I'm here on the East Coast with, humidity and also in the hundreds. So,
Yeah. I'd
we'll
rather
find
take
those
my
kind of things.
100s than yours. I don't want foofy hair.
Yes,
Humidity.
Virginia is
Whoa.
very generous with her humidity.
I guess she's having a hot flash.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was a bunch of fun.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being my first guest and being my first interview. It was so much fun, and thanks for putting up with me. All right, everybody, keep an eye on us. We'll be back. I'll be back in a couple of weeks talking about traveling with allergies next month. And if you have questions, let me know. And Simply Enhance is web address is on the screen. So have a great day and let us know if you have questions.